Hello, good morning. This is Josh Wagner with Montana Department of Agriculture. Just the spring early detection rapid response uh, webinar to kind of get everybody thinking about some of these high priority weeds. And just to give a quick update on what's been going on, if you haven't talked to me recently and heard. So then we will get into our new AgCorps program and let them introduce themselves. But I will get going, I think. So you've all probably seen this list multiple times. This is still kind of the core list of what we're working on. 2.5 years this program's been in existence, and these were the ones we started with. And I just want to go through some of the big ones. I've kind of gotten in a little bit of scolding for always being the bearer of bad news sometimes. So I want to talk today a little bit about what we're doing good and what we're doing bad. And some of these species are good and bad, depends on where we're at. Grasses, one of these is not like the other, and it's not that common reed is perennial, it's that ventinata. It's on the EDRR list, but really, as people are probably know by now, it's pretty widespread. It's not exactly EDRR across the state, it's still EDRR locally. The current map, 26 counties as of about a year ago. Treasure County had 0.2 acres, and Southern Fallon County, we're starting to see it. Carter County has a lot. So since then, since about a year ago, we have not heard that there's any additional counties. I think that's a little bit of a win. We saw lots of increase the first few years after listing it in 2019. Part of that was probably education, or a large part of that was education. And now we're maybe a little bit balanced out. But we do want to treat it in these counties that don't yet have it as an EDRR species. And the counties that do have it, it's a new thing, still pretty new to everybody, and we want to try to figure out what the future holds. This time of year, it's just starting to pop up. It's just going to be a little spear. You're going to see those black nodes, or those dark purplish brown nodes. And unlike cheatgrass, it's going to be smooth. It's not going to have multiple leaves like a small bunch grass. It's just going to be a little spear. If you see it right now in May. Pretty hard to see, pretty small, pretty slender. But this is what you'll be looking for. It's soon to just be a little bit bigger, but again, it's that just straight shaft kind of going up. It's not like cheatgrass where you have several leaves coming out and the leaves are twisted and hairy. And then if you see it in the field, this picture on the left is up by Libby. It's sometimes kind of a lighter green color, and it's smaller than the other grasses, but it really blends in well, so you have to have a good eye this time of year. You're going to want to look in areas that hold moisture, like these swales. This is on the Crow Reservation later in the year when it started to turn blonde. Also roadsides, medians, anywhere that holds water, that's typically where it starts. And then it spreads from there. So I mentioned the last picture was Libby. This site here by Hardin probably gets about 13 inches of precipitation a year. Libby's gonna, lots of areas in that area are gonna get at least twice that. So this shows why it's such a danger to Montana, because it can thrive in very dry areas, very wet areas, anywhere in between. It's shocking how much is on the Crow Reservation. This picture right here is, again, the Crow Reservation. So the bad news with ventinata, I said the good news is that we're kind of holding steady around half the counties in the state right now. The bad news is it seems to be getting a lot more abundant in the areas where it is. So Bryce Christians mentioned that in Missoula this spring, and Bryce is a botanist I really respect, and he just says on the west side, same thing. It's getting thicker and thicker. So we know how to treat it. We don't exactly know what those treatments are going to do in the long term, what the big long-term answer is. Pro-reservation, there's serious concerns about leasing this land and the value to agriculture because it is expensive to treat. And so it's a lot up in the air. So if you're one of those counties that doesn't yet have it, please be keeping an eye out for it, and we will try to get it figured out if you start getting it. Another grass is the Phragmites. So there's a site between Ronan and Missoula on the roadside. Lane Von Lanken with Missoula County has been working on that site, and last year he did not see it. And then there's the Chinook between Chinook and Havre along the Milk River. There was quite a bit the last few years, and that's Terry Turner's making big improvements there. He's down to, he said, about 200 plants. So he used 2 backpack sprayers last year to treat all of it, and the plants are not that vigorous. So we're seeing improvements there. But late last summer, we got a site that showed up in Bozeman. So there's John with Gallatin County in the upper left-hand corner. That's the exotic Phragmites subspecies australis. You could see how big and green and vigorous that is. It's laying over. It's extremely tall, but it's so heavy and dense that it's laying over. It's right behind some houses. And that's late summer, early fall. The lower right-hand corner is down by Townsend in Broadwater County. That's the native. You could see the major difference. That's the exact same day. I took those pictures on the same day. So the native, which is all over the state in riparian areas, you could see there's snowberry growing in there. The seed heads aren't really big and evident. It's a lot more desiccated at that time of year, where the invasive is just big and green and thick. You couldn't even walk through it. You can't even walk like 5 feet into it before it gets so thick that it just stops your body. And then the upper right-hand corner of the center one is the invasive. It's kind of that copper. It's got a little bit of copper brown to it, and it's very, very thick and dense. You could see the seed head. And then on either side of it is the native seed heads. And those looked really big and vigorous to me. I tried to find the biggest ones I could. And as you can see, compared to the invasive, they're very small, not nearly as thick. And then through the course of the winter, they start to disappear even more. This is again at that Bozeman site. So this is the good news. I think Phragmites, good things are happening. This Bozeman site, there was 2 spots really close to each other, and one of them was in an old irrigation ditch, and they were building a parking lot over it because it's Bozeman, and that's what they do. So the contractor dug a pit, excavated it all, buried it, cleaned the equipment really well. And then the other site there, our Ag Corps, Sam, and I went down there and helped Gallatin County, and we clipped all the seed heads, bagged them, incinerated them, triple bagged them, and treated them with glyphosate just because it's right behind some houses. So we didn't want to get too crazy with the Mazapir. There's trees there, and we'll be keeping an eye on that, but it's not even 1/10 of an acre. So between the Terry's sites, and that's Terry there standing in that stuff, and it looks pretty tall, but actually Terry's just pretty short. So those plants are becoming less vigorous, and they're very patchy where once it was just solid along his ditches. So that's actually, I think we're doing pretty good on Phragmites. Continue to keep your eyes out for the invasive. if anybody wants to see the difference between the two, I'd be glad to show. Medusa head, I think this is another pretty good success story as far as we know. This is Mike Burdine from Lincoln County up by Libby. He's got one small site of maybe around an acre and just maybe 24 plants, and he's treating it with Rejuvra, keeping a close eye on it. It's not going anywhere. And then CSKT has a site that AJ says is going down. So one worry is that it might be coming up from Nebraska or Wyoming, south of Billings. So that's something we need to watch for. And of course, this very distinct seed head on this, and we all want to continue to keep our eyes out for it. Just because we think we're in good shape doesn't mean we're going to stay in good shape. And as we've seen with Ventonata, what it's done to the state, we don't want the same thing to happen with Medusa head. Rush skeleton weed, this is a weed that I think about a lot. It worries me a lot. I think it could be the worst weed in the state. Again, some good, some bad. The bad is, well, the good is that we only had 3,300 acres as of last summer in the entire state, which Idaho has 4 million acres. The Western US has 6.2 million acres. So to think that we've kept it since 1987 down to just a little over 3,000 acres is, I feel really good about it. But we treat those areas hard. We put a lot of resources into that. And then in the late summer, Tyler from Lake County called and he found a new spot. He was pretty concerned, had a blow up. Kellyanne Sweeney from Ravalli County called. She had a blow up. And then we found some right outside of Lewis and Clark, or right outside of Helena and Lewis and Clark County. The big concern with rush skeleton weed is how much it can mess with fallow systems with wheat. And I think we all know how important wheat is to Montana, and especially in the Golden Triangle. Lewis and Clark County is getting pretty close to that. So that was concerning. I lost a lot of sleep over that last summer, and I think about it a lot. And after we found the one site right outside of Helena, within a week, we found another site in East Helena. So there's concern there. This time of year, if you're out looking for it, you can see it looks exactly like a dandelion rosette, but when it starts bolting, which is what it's doing, maybe the bolt, if it right now it might be 2 to 4 inches tall. It's got those stiff hairs on the bottom, and the stem is really rigid, where a dandelion stem is flaccid and like a tube. Rush skeleton weed is rigid and has those stiff hairs. So right now I've heard some people say it's up to a foot tall, but mostly like 2 to 4 inches tall. Pretty hard to see, but at least now you know whether or not it's dandelion or rush skeleton weed. Again, dandelion and rush skeleton weed right next to each other. So that center picture's kind of what you're going to see right now. Just a few slender leaves and this main stem coming up, and then even smaller rosette to the left. And those rosettes will keep coming up through the summer, but right now they're just beginning. The new sites, why do I think that they're thriving in these new sites? Well, you can look at this site right there. That's just north of Polson on Flathead Lake, Lake County. That's the site that Tyler got that was pretty concerning. You could see it's a lot of cheatgrass. So degraded rangeland. Rush skeleton weed really likes that. We'll find a home in that degraded rangeland. You can see that's basically just mustard and cheatgrass. And that looks like a pretty dry site, but it actually thrives, again, single digits to 20, 30 inches of precipitation and more. So it can really thrive anywhere. But if you're keeping your land healthy, I think you're going to have a lot better chance of keeping it out. This is the new Ravalli County site. It's by Scalco Pass. And again, what do you see there? Lots of cheatgrass, degraded range. Then you can see those stiff hairs. And I really have to give well, all the skeleton weed managers, so much credit. They're clipping and bagging all those plants. It's extremely labor intensive, but it's really the only way that we're gonna stay on top of it. So you can see an example right there of how they've clipped and bagged that. And then this is the first site just outside of Helena. And once again, pretty rough rangeland. You could see lots of cheatgrass in there. And that site was about an acre, and it was far, far, far away from any development, any roads. We're not exactly sure how it got there. That's Jasmine, my boss, in the picture on the right. So you can see those plants are pretty mature. It'd probably been there for a while. It was a solid acre. And fortunately, the land managers there are extremely dedicated and committed to treating it. And the good news on this is none of the two Helena sites, nothing's being seen so far this year. But with brush skeleton weed, it's one that once it's there, you're going to be dealing with it for decades. This is the East Helena site, and to beat a dead horse, cheatgrass. It's an old farm field that was just abandoned and let get weedy. And that site, that's maybe 20 feet by 20 feet. And then to reiterate how important it is to clip and bag these really high priority weeds and then incinerate them. If you don't have access to that, I could help with that. I've taken a lot of bags over to Kellyanne, and I kind of hope to someday have a Department of Ag incinerator. We'll see. The Noxious Weed Trust Fund, Greta's program, that really helps us with these high priority weeds. And some more good news is this year, those 4 counties that are more orange, those are the only counties where we have significant populations of brush skeleton weed, and all 4 of them now have task forces. So Ravalli and Lincoln have had pre-existing task forces, and Sanders and Lake have new task forces this year. So that certainly helps to keep this and protect the rest of the state. Water hemp and Palmer amaranth. This is another one worry about a lot. Before 2023, Montana was one of the 4 states in the northwestern US that did not yet have Palmer amaranth. We were feeling pretty good about that. Of course, we were worried, but North Dakota, this is 11 months ago. You could see it was getting closer and closer to Montana, even right up to the border. So we everybody, I think, assumed that that's where it was going to come from. Well, Idaho's now checked off the list. They were on the Palmer amaranth free list. Now they have 71 populations of Palmer amaranth and water hemp, and it's just up and down the roadsides. And that's a weed scientist from University of Idaho, and you can just see how big those plants are and why we want to keep it out of Montana. And this is just a water hemp from Idaho that was treated with 2 times glyphosate, didn't do anything to it. And then, as of late last fall, Washington, which was another state that was standing strong, they had 2 plants in Walla Walla County and 150 to 200 plants in Spokane County. So the multiple plants is really key on this species. It's dioecious, so it needs male and female plants to reproduce. So the fact that there was hundreds of plants in Spokane County, that's bad news. All the other amaranth / pigweed species we deal with in Montana are monoecious. Water hemp and Palmer amaranth are dioecious. So Montana also got Palmer amaranth. I've shared this around the state. Montana State's been sharing it out, but this is in Shelby. It's 1 solitary male plant. We think it probably came in birdseed because millet is a big spreader. But being that it was just 1 male plant, it did not reproduce, but we will still be keeping an eye on it. And then up near Scobie, it was finally found in a field. So this is a really difficult plant to tell from other pigweeds. The moral of the story for this is if you see a weird pigweed, something unusual, something big, something with a large seed head, send it to the lab in Bozeman and let the professional botanists like Tim Seipel and Noel Orloff figure out what it is. Our education's working. They're getting many more samples. So don't feel afraid to send it if you see something weird. Hiding in plain sight. I think the one weed in the state, another one I think about a lot that I think you see we only have a few black dots on the suitability map, common buckthorn. I think there's a lot more of it than anyone realizes. So if you've talked to me in the last several months, I've kind of been beating that drum. You can see how thick it gets, every single bit of green in these photos, and this is right here in Montana. That's all common buckthorn. This is around Kalispell and around Billings. It's just solid common buckthorn once it starts to invade. And this is down in Billings, Yellowstone County, doing removal. And it's extremely labor intensive. So you could just, all those piles, common buckthorn, and it's certainly hard on that riparian area to be in there doing projects like that, and it's certainly expensive. It's called buckthorn because it's got the two buds next to each other and with a thorn in the middle on the ends of the branches. So kind of looks like a buck hoof. It's got orange bark, black berries. It's got 3 to 4 sets of veins that run parallel to each other. So try to start learning what that looks like and start looking for it for us. The bottom right-hand corner is common buckthorn. It's sub-opposite. So the leaves are just not quite directly across from each other, but they're not staggered like alternate either. So then you can see those veins. They have really distinct veins. I'd be glad to come out and talk to anyone about that too. We're continuing to look at ways to address other woodies too, like Russian olive and salt cedar. Dr. David Weaver at MSU's continuing with research on biocontrol. We're trying to get grant money, but these things are very expensive to treat. So even if we do get money, it doesn't go real far. Biocontrol is probably the ultimate long-term answer. Garden loosestrife was a new one that we started working on last summer. It's not on my initial list of 16. If you were on this EDRR webinar last fall, we had King County, Seattle talk about it a little bit. It's a lot worse than purple loosestrife, very rhizomatous, hard to kill. So I was treating it with triclopyr. Turns out you probably need to use a imazapyr. So this is down in Hamilton. We've got 2 sites, Hamilton and Kalispell. The triclopyr looked really active on it, but we'll see this year if that worked or not. Tansy ragwort, I think this is a win. Lincoln County is really heading up this effort too. They're extremely active for a small county. Really active in rush skeleton weed and tansy ragwort and ventonata. And it's pretty much limited to Flathead County border with Lincoln County and then Lincoln County, and they spend a lot of time and money on it. There's a little bit in Lewis and Clark County, and Lincoln County's coming over and helping, and I think we're gonna see that site go away in the near future. Yellow star thistle, we could call that a win. Sometimes I just wonder if that's only because it just doesn't really work well in Montana because it's so bad in other places and it just hasn't seemed to have been able to establish. We've got strong education on it. We certainly need to keep paying attention, but I think we can call that a win for now, something to be happy about. Dyer's Woad, this is the Montana success story. Amber Birch in Beaverhead counties just really does an awesome job with this task force. And we're not going to turn our backs on it, but it's something to be proud of and a story to tell. It's a mustard, so it has 4 petals on the flowers. It has a different yellow color than any other of the weedy mustards you'll see in Montana. It's got that cream color mid-vein in the leaf and a very rubbery leaf that's really, really distinct from any other mustard you'll see. So continue to keep an eye out for that one. but I could never sing Amber's praises enough, and for all the work she does to protect all of us from that becoming an issue like it is in Idaho or other states. And I read this quote this winter, and I just think it really sums up task forces, but even though it's talking about a university, but I've worked at places where everybody tries to keep their own little kingdom and they don't want to work together, and that just doesn't work. And in the weed world, most of us we work really awesome together, and it's probably, besides the dogs, my favorite part of the job is just working with you all. So I appreciate it that people don't. When I first started the job, I used to worry about stepping on toes, and everybody's just so welcoming and happy to collaborate. I went to Alberta a few weeks back and spoke, and I felt like that was a little bit of a win because they're so impressed by the work we do in Montana. And whenever I go to surrounding states, I always hear the same things. Montana does really well, and they've got blue weed way worse than we do. They've got more Phragmites than us. They've got Himalayan balsam, which we don't have. I mean, they have things we don't have, and they're doing great work too. But it was kind of eye-opening to see, like, for instance, how bad the blue weed and Phragmites were compared to what we have. It's not like it's overrun the entire province, but they have a lot more sites than we do. And speaking of which, blue weed's one to continue to keep an eye on. It's a distinct weed, and if you talk to Kellyanne Sweeney, she'll tell you what a nightmare it is. And I just have to throw this picture out here because this is over there in Ravalli County. Lots of blue weed, like I said, very, very distinct. And after treatment, this is what it looked like last fall. So that was just a little bit of time between those two photos and showing like what all that hard work and clipping and bagging and treatments and lots of labor, you know, we're seeing positive outcomes. Back to this list, just kind of think which ones are wins and which ones are loses. I think rush skeleton weed is a scary one, and we've lost a little ground, but we're going to keep trying. Ventnata's all over, but we need to protect those counties that don't have it. Palmer amaranth, I still think we're winning. Scotch broom, we're doing pretty well, so it's not all negative. But I do spend a lot of time thinking about these three, and I lose some sleep over them. So really keep your eyes out for rush skeleton weed, Ventnata if you don't have it yet, and Palmer amaranth. They're all very different. Palmer amaranth is a little more of a crop weed. Ventnata rangeland, rush skeleton weed rangeland. Ventnata, like I said, 26 counties, rush skeleton weed, less than 10 counties, Palmer amaranth, just a few plants. But they're all difficult to manage, expensive. So they're things we need to focus on. And kind of as we roll into the ag core, we have a lot of staff here at Department of Ag now that can help with education, and I think we've really kicked up education in the last couple of years, at least from this end. Just got out a lot, talked to people, and I know everybody else is doing it. It's not like it's just us, but we can help you make material if you have ideas. We have the capacity to do that. We can get creative. NASMA's helping us with Ventnata. We've got dash stickers for your road crews. So reach out to me if you need any of this material. And there's my contact info. And with that, I will pass it over to Jasmine, and she can introduce everybody to AgCorp and hear a little bit about what they're doing to help with weeds, and hopefully specifically a little bit how they can help with these high priority species. Thank you.
Yeah, Josh, there was one question about how Phragmites got to Bozeman. If you want to answer that one before I go.
It's an interesting story overall. We don't know exactly how it got to that site, but I would suspect construction, because there's new construction all over there and it's old, wet farm fields. So it really spreads easily by root fragments more than by seed. So I would suspect out-of-state construction equipment. Idaho has a lot of it. Utah has a lot of it. But the way we found that was it was at the farmer's market in a flower bouquet, and Gallatin County did some follow-up. And when I heard about it, I thought maybe next year we'll find out where it came from. And within less than 2 weeks, we knew exactly where it came from, and then had tracked down where that person had found it and treated it, and it was just awesome. I mean, just can't say enough how good a county weed districts we have out there. I mean, everybody, federal agencies, private applicators, we've got lots of great people working, state agencies, but our county people are just after it. So that was so impressive how within 2 weeks we tracked it down and found it.
Great, thank you. All right, Josh, I'm gonna share my screen here. Okay, so good morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about AgCore, and it goes with our EDRR mostly because of that early detection piece of that, right? And so a big part of early detection is education and knowing what you're looking for. And so last year, I did a planning grant through AmeriCorps, and that was really to kind of assess the department and our stakeholders and see if a AmeriCorps grant or a program with the department would be a good fit. And so we went through all that and we got funding for our first year. So this 2024 is our first year of AgCore. Currently we have 8 members, but we had 11 slots. And we just found out last week that next year we can have up to 14 members, which is awesome. So we're growing the program already. We have fantastic members with us this year. But I just want to let everyone know kind of about our program because we are looking to grow and really expand that capacity across the state. So if you're involved with programs or have a program that you think would benefit having an AmeriCorps member, please let us know. But here's some of the basics. So our AgCorps goals for this year, we want to recruit volunteers, do classroom education. So we had a goal this year of 440 students, and we are far and above beyond that already, only 4 or 5 months into the program. So getting into a ton of classrooms, which is great. We want to build capacity with organizations. So whether that's helping man your 4-H booth or putting on a program for some of your landowners, things like that. Hitting 132 individuals in those organizations, and then increase efficiency, effectiveness, and our reach with at least 22 organizations. And we are both of those 2 goals, we're on track to meet and probably exceed those as well. So here are some of our programs that we have AmeriCorps members helping with. So in Noxious Weeds here at the department, we have 3 members, full-term members. One is coordinating our Adopt a Trailhead Montana program, helping out with Pull Your Share, and helping do education for our noxious weed-free materials program. We have 1 member doing mapping and monitoring. So he's helping train landowners, helping counties get their mapping data into EdMaps and into kind of a viewable, usable format. And then also doing some monitoring with Greta, our Noxious Weed Trust Fund coordinator, setting up permanent monitoring sites on our grants. And then we have another person doing education and outreach, and she is mostly focused on schools, but she's been helping counties across the state too, and is always willing to help out where you need help. Marketing, we were not able to fill those slots this year, but we'll be looking to fill those next year, and those have changed a little bit. We just had a new member start Monday with our recycling sustainability program. So she's going to help out with the recycling, pesticide recycling program, and groundwater monitoring program. And we have 1 person working with organics and apiary and doing some pest surveys. So he'll give you a talk today about what he's been up to. And then we have members at NCAT, 2 members in Butte, and they're doing Harvest of the Month. And then we also have a person at St. Peter's Hospital here in Helena doing Harvest of the Month as well. So we're looking to expand. Like I said, we'll have 14 members next year, which will be awesome. And this is kind of the timeline for AgCorps. So they start in like mid-January. This year they started a week before our like subarctic weather. So it's like -45 during their orientation. So it's awesome that they've stayed. And they'll close service like mid-November. And so they're here pretty much all year. So for supervisors as a host site, this is really what they're responsible for, is approving timesheets, just doing a weekly check-in with their members, helping them do a development plan, you know, their work plan, what they'll be doing all year. Keep track of some spending and reporting, and then an end of term evaluation and just attending our close of service. And then the cost for a full-time member for the year is $6,000. So it's ridiculously a good investment in a person to help you build that capacity in your organization. And just a few of the prohibited activities they cannot do. They can't replace a full-time employee. They can't duplicate duties that a full-time employee would be doing. And then some of these like influence legislation or protesting, prohibit all those things, religious activities. And then their time can be split into 3 categories. So they are expected to get some training and do some of that. They can do up to 10% of their time can be fundraising, whether for the organization or programs. And then most of it is direct service and capacity building. So really out in the field, working with those organizations, doing programming. And so that's the AgCorps program. And so now I'm just gonna have a few of our members kind of chat with you and let you know what they've been up to all year.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna attempt to share my screen just so I can have something there. All right. So my name is Sam. I am the AmeriCorps AgCorps Adopted Trailhead Coordinator. I started off at Boise State. I got my degree in biology. I joined the Idaho Conservation Corps, and then last year I joined the Montana Conservation Corps as with the Montana Department of Ag as the Adopted Trailhead Coordinator. So I'm on my 2nd term and it's been really great so far. I guess I'll just get into a little bit about Adopt a Trailhead. So what is Adopt a Trailhead? It's on the screen, a cooperative volunteer program to help Montana's trails from noxious weeds. So I work with different volunteer groups and organizations across Montana to install these boot brush kiosks. I have some pictures here. It's a good one that can show. Yeah, so like these right here, I helped different volunteer groups across the state install those. We do this to prevent the spread of noxious weeds from traveling through trailhead corridors. The signs provide some educational information about the weeds in the area and encourages recreators to brush their shoes before entering and leaving an area to prevent the spread of noxious weeds. To set up one of these stations, usually a volunteer group will contact me. They usually have a trailhead in mind that they want to work on, and I help them set things up with the land agency. We work together to figure out what weeds we want on the signage. So the department provides the frame for the kiosk as well as the boot brush, and then the volunteer groups help out by providing funding for signage and the posts that for the kiosk. We ask that volunteer groups perform 1 weed pull a year at the site, usually for about an hour or so. It doesn't have to be very long, just getting out there and making sure that the trail has been managed in some way. So this year we will have 13 kiosks installed with the Great Burn Conservation Alliance, Grow Wild, and the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. So I'm very excited about that. So thank you to all of those groups. I also work doing some education stuff, traveling around to different weed pulls, obviously, but also working with Pull Your Share, going into classrooms with Dan Wilkins, and other sort of weed related events around the state. I've also been last year, one of my big projects was this story map, which goes through all of the different kiosks across the state and also provides some background information about the program. So Adopt a Trailhead started in 2015 in the Lolo, and we have over 75 Adopt a Trailhead sites now, with 50 of them adopted. So if you are interested in joining part of the program, there are some kiosks out there that do need volunteer groups to go out and pull. So if you're interested, it's very exciting. We can find somewhere near you. We also provide these recognition signage that credits the volunteer groups for going out and working there. This is an example. This was with the Glacier View 4-H group at Stanton Lake Trailhead. They pulled many bags of oxeye daisy and other weeds along the trail, and it was a very exciting day. Yeah, so at each kiosk you can find some information on the noxious weeds in the area, as well as recognition for the adoptee group. Thank you to all of the Adopt a Trailhead groups. Yeah, I also have a newsletter that goes out every year. It'll probably come out towards the end of the year in November as the service term wraps up. We also have some stickers that we've created and pamphlets and brochures. It's been a very exciting year, and I'm very happy to continue into the next. All right. I think now we will hear from Chloe. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. All right. You want to just like, come on. Okay. Hi, everyone. Little chair swap there. My name is Chloe. I am the sorry, I'm trying to get situated. I am the Noxious Weed Education Outreach Specialist with Ag Corps this year. I got my start. I graduated last year with a degree in environmental science. My focus was in sustainable development. My coursework took more of a focus towards agriculture, and I've always really held a deep interest for plant sciences. So this role has been a really great kind of combination of all my interests and experience. So with Noxious Weed Education and Outreach, I've had the opportunity to contribute to lessons all over the state, as Jasmine was kind of saying. Opportunity definitely to go to more rural areas, to schools that have, you know, maybe 12 kids K through 5, which is really cool. And these are definitely in more farm-centric regions where noxious weeds pose a significant threat. So it's really great to disseminate information all over Montana. As Sam said, we have been doing lessons with Great Falls High School with Dan Wilkins of Pull Your Share. And it was really great being able to do the lesson in the school and then go out to the weed pull afterwards, and seeing the kids really take an interest to weed identification and management. They get very excited, and it's very great to see. In Helena, I've recently started doing more lessons with Prickly Pear Land Trust. These are more outdoor walk lessons where, you know, the kids are outside and we're able to identify weeds kind of, you know, in place rather than in a classroom, which is great. Also, we've been doing plenty of 4-H collaboration. Sam and I went up to Glacier View 4-H, do a little weed lesson, and then we'll have the opportunity to do a backcountry weed pull with them in a few weeks, which is another great opportunity. And then Broadwater 4-H group, that will be great. They're hosting a camp where we'll be able to do a half-day weed pull and lesson, and you know, really just again driving home the message of disseminating information all over Montana about noxious weeds. So that's great. In addition to that, also doing conservation days and farm fairs. I'm very grateful to all the Weed County coordinators that I've been able to work with so far. I have a little list and I definitely missed some here, but Beaverhead County, Yellowstone, Carbon County, Jefferson, Powell County, Gallatin County, Missoula County, and I'm probably forgetting some, but it's been great to really work in collaboration with you all and see more in depth how education with weeds is managed just throughout the state. Yeah, overall, this has been very rewarding. As I've said, you know, kids really get into weed identification, invasive species awareness. I think it's just very important for, you know, from a young age to recognize that these are things that pose a really, again, a significant threat to Montana specifically with agriculture and tourism. In addition to the lessons and all the collaborative efforts, I also on my to-do list, I have the website updates. I have a new landowner packet that I've been making slow and steady progress on. In addition to that, I'm also working on a storyboard, which is composed of ethnographic interviews. I'm hoping to highlight how noxious weeds affect all demographics. So if you have, you know, a story of a particular noxious weed that is affecting you, please don't hesitate to reach out. And yeah, again, as Jasmine said, I'm very eager to help out wherever needed. As we get into the summer months, I expect that there'll be plenty of field work. If anyone, you know, thinks they need a helping hand, please don't hesitate to reach out. Yeah, really just looking forward to continue distributing information equitably throughout Montana and raising awareness on ID and management. So with that, I will pass the baton over to Quinn.
Hello, everyone. Go real quick. My name is Quinn Sullivan. I am the apiary nursery and organics specialist at Montana Ag Corps. I started my journey. I am a marketing major from Texas A&M University. Whoop! And I didn't really expect to become a beekeeper. I was finishing my last semester of college, and I saw that beekeepers paid $15 an hour, and I was like, that's great. I want to go on a spring break trip with my friends. And then I really got into like the thick of it. I worked with honey extraction and I did hive health checks, and we delivered these things called nucleus colonies. So I call it like it's the bees' little rental house. And we would have people from all over the country come and get our bees because they are varroa mite resistant, which is really hard to do if you have bees. And I would talk to people while doing it. And my boss is like, oh, you're really good at talking to people. Let me have you run every operation of our apiary. And I was like, whoa, okay. And I started doing public outreach, and I did tours, and I did private beekeeping lessons. And I found myself going home and I would like educate myself. I would take books that we had at the front desk of where I worked. And it was like these big textbooks. And I would end the day reading a textbook. And I was like, oh, I think I might be interested in this. And winter came in Texas. It was the end of November, and I was preparing to enter the real world and have like a corporate marketing job or something. And it scared me. And then I decided one day, I was like, let me look up apiary to see if there's any like apiary special jobs. And where I am now serving with Montana Ag Corps, it was apiary organics and nursery specialist. And I was like, this seems really cool. And I looked into it more, learned more about AmeriCorps. And I was like, this is like a perfect opportunity for me. And I applied and I got it. And I made my 3-day trip to Montana in January. When I got here, it was negative 35 degrees and it was snowing. And I'm from South Texas, so that was like so new to me. And I was like, whoa. But the transition was great. Everyone I work with is so wonderful. And I began with helping organics. I help with organic certification for farmers. So I do like data collection and I did surveys and I asked them what they think about organics and taught me a lot about farming that I didn't know. I have a really big appreciation for that now, especially in Montana, because especially our small farmers go through a lot and they're really amazing. So I love y'all. And with the apiary side of my job, I work with Alyssa Picamilli, and I've been able to do things like hive health checks. I recently went to a pollinator research summit and I got to learn about all our pollinators, which I also teach kids and adults of all ages about the importance of pollination. And I just love distributing that information because this is our land and our nature. We need to protect it. And I love educating people about it and making them excited because it's something that excites me. And I try to translate that into when I have my presentations. And I have a beekeepers club. If you're in the Helena area and you like beekeeping and you want bees, I had my first meeting last month and I was in there and I was so nervous. And of course, this service opportunity has been perfect because I've been able to combine my marketing degree with my love for bees, and it's like the baby of that. So it's been wonderful. And I was getting ready to have my first beekeepers club, and all these people started coming in. I thought there was going to be like 5 people, and then the whole room was full. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And it kind of turned into this really cool group discussion where I know about how bees work in Texas. And the beekeepers here, you know, they deal with the snow and really crazy wind. The wind here is so crazy. And so they were kind of teaching me as I was teaching them about stuff and just being able to build community in a new place. I always love building community and making relationships and having people have that place where they can come together and share a common interest has been fun. My second meeting is June 6th at Montana Wilds. I'll send out information. So if you're interested, we have a good time. And with my survey traps, I got here, I work with Frank Etzler on that. And I've been working mainly with the emerald ash borer, which is decimating 90% of our white and green ash trees in the country. And it's really scary and really sad. And they're a hard little beetle to deal with because you only really see symptoms in trees when the emerald ash borer has been that their larva eats the phloem of the tree, and it, like 2 to 3 years go by and the tree's already decimated. So I work with frontliners, I work with arborists, and recently I went to an emerald ash borer convention in Billings, and I had them all lined up and I showed them what to look for, and it was really nice teaching them. Of course, it's not a nice thing to have to teach about. Montana right now is good on emerald ash borers, but I'm setting up a bunch of traps in Helena right now. I'm about to do that. That's a future project. And I'm going to make a big poster and I'm going to put, what is this little beetle and what does it do and why does it suck? And when I first got here, Frank had me read a bunch of like scientific research articles, which I've never done before because I went to business school, but I always had an interest in science. And getting to learn about that was very eye-opening. And I don't know, this whole opportunity has really opened my eyes to the importance of nature and teaching people about it. And especially someone my age, I grew up with my grandparents teaching me the importance of nature conservation, but getting to teach more people and enlightening them has been so wonderful. And I can't wait to keep doing that for the rest of my term. So I love Montana Ag Corps and all the people I work with. It's been wonderful. And that's it for us. I hope we taught you guys something and you enjoyed our presentation. Goodbye.
Thanks, Ag Corps. So this is Josh again, and well, thanks to the Ag Corps for getting in there. They're really smart, really fun. They're filling in a lot of holes that some of us things we couldn't pick up. We just don't have the staff to do. So If you have any ways they could help you, let us know. And if there's any way I could help you, let me know. And I don't see any more questions. But email me, call me, text me. Really excited for the growing season to come. I love being out there working on weeds with you. So thanks for joining today, and we will try to get this on YouTube shortly if you want to watch it again. Have a good one. Thanks.